That's a big gator. Any minute he's gonna bust out of here. It's gonna scare the crap out of me and I'll drop my phone. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. It's on the water Wednesday, and it's a recap video for Lake Eufaula in Alabama, Georgia. I tell you what, guys, it's getting to the point where I'm dreading doing these videos because things are just not going well at all, and there was a part of me that really wanted to go jump in and just swim with alligators and, have them put me out of my misery on this one. It's another tournament, guys, where I had a very, very solid practice and felt real good about what I was doing. I knew that this was going to be a tournament that was going to get one fishing either the ledges or brush piles. And my game plan was I was not going to spend 3 days idling around finding brush piles because, quite honestly, you get into a situation where you're behind everybody else. There are guys who know where the brush piles are. Those brush piles have been there for years. And you could be in a situation where in 3 days, you could find 100 brush piles, but you don't know the quality of those. And so you're in one rotation while guys who have more knowledge and more history are in a different rotation. And chances are your rotation is not going to be great. And you end up chasing empty brush piles and things like that. It was not a direction that I wanted to go. Wasn't that I didn't know that it was going on. Wasn't that I didn't know that that's where things were going to be won. But my goal was, hey, let's fish my strengths. Let's go fish the river where I believe I can work shallow and work my kind of stuff and still be able to catch 15 pounds a day and be okay. So I went up to, I spent 1 day of practice fishing docks on the main lake and wasn't thrilled with it. Caught some keepers and found some keepers, I should say. Didn't really stick a lot of fish. Stuck a few just to check size. Knew that I was catching a lot of dinks as well, but in and among them was catching some 14, 15-inch fish. Nothing that was really going to do a whole lot for me. Did find some fish on a frog, which I knew were decent fish, and I didn't stick them, so I knew where they were on the lake and thought, okay, it's a beginning for the lake. Second day of practice, went and fished the river and spent the day in the river, and that's when I started to get excited. All I had to do was look for the gator grass, look for wood, and I could flip a Cinco in and was seeing the fish. They were hanging on to that bait. I was seeing tons of them. Nice 2.5 pound quality fish. Lots of fish on a frog that were coming up that were good 3+ pound fish. And I thought, okay, I've got a lot of areas marked on the river. There are areas that I don't even have to, all I have to do is I can go fish new water. As long as I'm fishing the kind of stuff that looks like this, I'm going to be fine. And I felt pretty solid about being able to do that. Well, the first day of the tournament comes. We have severe storms the last day of practice, which took us off the water by 1 o'clock on on the last day of practice. No off day at this tournament. And so we started fishing on Friday with no off day, and the water rose a foot, and the water in the river was chocolate milk. And everything that I had just disappeared. And again, guys, this is obviously they caught them. The same weights that I predicted, 15 pounds a day to take a top 30. And it was a little higher for a top 40, 14.8 to take a top 50. I mean, to cash check. That was higher than I thought it was going to be, but it just, they were catching them, and I got skunked on day one. I ended up figuring out that I couldn't throw a wacky rig Cinco, that the fish had moved from being suspended in the treetops to going down to the bottom because of the mud. Was able to throw a Cinco using a shaky head and get bit, but every fish that I ended up catching was like 13 and a half, and I lost several that bit and then got me tied up in the limbs underneath and broke several off. Had a couple frog fish that, slapped at the bait but wouldn't recommit to getting bit on that frog, and ended up skunking on the first day. And I tell you what, I don't remember. I went back to look. I can't find a time that I have gotten skunked since I've been fishing on the professional level. I think it probably has happened, but I don't recall when it has. And I certainly don't recall feeling this miserable about it. And to be honest, went out the second day and just said, okay, I'm going to go back to the docks on the main lake where the water's hopefully a little bit cleaner, and just try and put something together. I got nothing to lose at this point, and started fishing docks. And the one thing I will tell you with these docks, these are docks that I'm looking for. The docks that I'm looking for are straddled the break. The back of the dock can be in like 5 foot of water, and the front of the dock can be in 12 foot. So the break line is the shade of the dock covers the break line, which puts those fish right on that break line where they're not in shallow, but they're not all the way down in 12 foot of water, but right there. And sure enough, started pitching a wacky rig Cinco to the back posts of the dock, the one that was right on the break. Ended up getting this 3-pounder, doing that. Continue to work for maybe an hour or so, and you'll see coming up here, had a pretty nice 6-pound fish on the same back post of dock right on the break, and so kind of did that for the first part of the morning. It got to be about 12 o'clock. I had 2 fish in the boat, but 2 fish for 8 pounds, and thought, well, at this point, I was getting bit using the shaky head towards the end of the day on day one, and thought, okay, I know I broke a couple fish off. I know that I had some fish on a frog that blew up on it. Didn't know what the river was like, didn't know whether it was still dirty or not, but decided to run back up there and see if I could adapt a little bit and change things up and run back up the river. It was getting kind of windy on the main lake as it was, and didn't feel like that finesse approach on those docks was gonna be one that I could do. Plus I had hit a lot of the docks and gotten just those 2 bites on it. I wasn't getting bit very much. I was surprised that I wasn't even getting bit by non-keeper kind of fish. So I ran up the river, and the very first place I went to, where I did have a blow up on a frog the day before, ended up getting that frog bite, and So I had 3 fish and still had 2.5 hours to fill out a limit, and just couldn't get bit by a keeper, get another keeper bite the rest of the time. Feeling pretty dejected. 11.4 pounds with 3 fish for the tournament. To be honest, 11 pounds was better than half the field had with 5 fish. So I mean, they were the right fish, but it was. But I also I just need to be able to figure out how to end these tournaments and fish successfully during the tournament and not just during practice. And guys, one of the things that I will say that I'm kind of contemplating is that in practice, I have the mindset that I need to go find fish. And in a tournament, my mindset is, okay, go catch the fish that you found. And I think I need to start adjusting my mindset to, yeah, you can do that, but don't be afraid to go find fish during a tournament, especially when the conditions change the way they did. I guarantee you, I couldn't have done any worse if I'd on the first day of the tournament just went out as if it was practice and went to all new water. Obviously, couldn't have done any worse than not catching a fish, and I probably should have done that. So, again, guys, unfortunately, what I'm doing here is hopefully teaching you something while I proceed to beat myself up and not really kind of put what I'm putting out there, not putting it into practice. But one of these days, we're gonna be able to. I'm gonna be able to teach you something that I did correctly, as opposed to teaching you from my mistakes. But I hope you'll stick around with us as we try and learn this. We'd appreciate it if you'd hit the subscribe button, send your comments, suggestions for other videos, things like that. And we'll be back tomorrow for another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.